Here comes the nasty gram.
Send a priest to save my soul, forget it.
Welcome back to the Nastagram RPG podcast. This is A Tangled Web, Chapter 3, Dawn Breaks.
Feeling it too hard is the poison to the heart of a cynic.
The camera descends through the light of a soon breaking dawn over a winter landscape into a cavern, following closely into the form of Xavier Overos, Drow Wizard, as he wraps the cloaks around himself. As the camera follows inside the cloak, we see his spellbook set aside and his thumb tracing over and over against his finger. Suddenly, a ring comes into view where there was nothing. Lady Alita, are you there?
Yes, Xavier, I'm here. And I've been listening.
Then you know the night past has been a fortunate and blessed one. Our raiding party came to the surface and I looked up into the void for the first time. The emptiness was marred by the sickening light of Char's sister's saloon. And the town we found nearby, Lorel, was in the midst of a celebration to all of her wickedness, with devices that drenched the streets and square in the moon's glare. But we turned it all to our advantage. Our dear acolyte Savrakeen convinced the High Priestess to let us initiate the attack, and our secret goal was met. It was little work to infiltrate the town. You were right that so many of those on the surface are soft and weak. And we were able to allow the younglings to escape from the priestess's grasp, assuring that her fickle god Loth would turn on her. The rest was simple slaughter.
And what do you think of these companions you've cast your lot with?
Savrakeen, this acolyte, she's infatuated with the spider god as they all are. Yet there's something different about her. I cannot place it yet. Her brother Vass is as skilled with the blade as I have heard from Melee Magthair. Jidden is a fine ally to have in the shadow, keeps much to himself, wisely. The other male from Duskren, Silavar, has some particular talents of the arcane for a warrior, but I know not the source of his gifts.
They all have their secrets, Xavier, and that is for you to learn.
Yes, my lady,
For in secrets,
there is truth.
truth may hurt, but in pain,
There is strength,
strength grows from loss,
which all must face,
and all must face the darkness.
for in it we are whole. Thank you, my lady. The camera pans back out, passing through the cloaks. It moves directly overhead, looking down over the hunched form of Xavier. His black cloaks, trimmed in purple, spread out, the god's view of the divine symbol of Char.
We see a bustling tavern filled with happy drunks singing along as a handsome half-elf sits on the bar plucking the strings of a small harp. Next to him, a gnome sings and dances on the bar, and a middle-aged woman with shaved head and skin covered in tattoos sits with her eyes closed, swaying to the music. Her eyes open suddenly, a look of surprise and grief on her face, and a moment later, the door to the tavern crashes open. A young girl stands in the doorway, covered in mud, clutching the bloody symbol of Saloon. The half-elf stops playing. The tavern goes silent. Wake the constable. Muster the militia. Gillian, go wake Tabor. Get the horses saddled. Something horrible has happened.
Horribly awesome. Am I right?
We see the half-elf, the gnome, the human woman, sitting around a campfire inside the Temple of Saloon. Doro plays a somber funeral dirge, while Sigra brews something in a kettle. Behind them, we see Tabor, the massive dragonborn, carefully and respectfully arranging the dead. There are hundreds of bodies. A small silver bell hanging on a string rings. The group jumps to attention. In a drill that has clearly been practiced, Gillian immediately starts casting a spell as the others break down and pack the camp. As the final syllables of the spell are completed, the companions come together around Gillian, packs in hand, and disappear. All that is left behind is a smoldering campfire and a warm kettle. Welcome back to the Nastygram RPG podcast. I'm your Dungeon Master, Jake, and this is Tangled Web.
This is Josh. I'm playing the sly wizard with a little bit of Shar, Zavir Ovras.
Hey everyone, Dan here, playing Silavar Duskrin, the Drow Warlock. Who is your daddy? What does he do?
Is he drow?
A little bit.
Is he drow, or did you actually get to play in a drow game and yet still?
Yep, I still managed to not be it.
Technically a
On
tiefling.
point.
Drow Tiefling.
What's good, fam? Matt here. I am playing Jidin Duskrin, the Arcane Trickster Rogue.
Hey, this is Devin. I'm playing the ambitious Acolyte of Lolth, Savarkeen Vandry.
And Ryan is not here because I killed him.
Wow.
Ryan.
The end.
Personally,
interesting.
I
Yeah.
killed Ryan.
Interesting way to break the news.
Jeez.
Can we take 5? Let's talk about that.
No. We must carry on. I'm sure you guys all remember the plot completely since we just played last week.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Hasn't been 3 months or anything.
Sharp as a tack.
But you all listened. Good job. The sky turns from black to gold over the town of Lirel. The streets are scattered with corpses. Enormous spiderwebs cross the cathedral spires, glistening with morning dew as the sun rises. The town is silent, except for the caw of crows come to pick at the dead. Outside of Lirel, beneath a crack in the snow-covered ground, is the lair of an owlbear. Its massive body has been pushed into a corner to make room for the drow raiding party that has claimed the nest as their campsite. The raiding party rests, their dark work from the night before complete. Savarkeen, you dream of dancing in the Cathedral of Saloon. The moonlight fills the stained glass above and fills your heart with joy. You feel a sense of true happiness that you have never experienced in your life. As you spin and laugh, the moonlight warming your skin, you hear a voice call out to you. You hear the call of the Underdark. Not the city of the Spider Queen, but the wild tunnels and caverns. Their call is like a distant drum. As you dance, it grows louder and louder until, crack, the floor of the cathedral collapses. You fall into its dark embrace below. Everyone's sleep is interrupted by this crack, this sound of collapsing stone. The cavern begins to fill with dust. Luckily, your infravision is only slightly blurred by the dust, but it chokes you quickly, and you find yourself struggling to breathe as you wake. What do? Just a quick point of order. You guys had finished your mission. You had discussed murdering Fenra. Day was quickly approaching, so your entire raiding party was setting up camp in the owlbear nest, in case you didn't get that. When this whatever event occurs, none of you happen to be on watch. Vass was on watch. You all made sure that one of you got onto each shift of watches tonight. And during his watch, you were all suddenly awoken by this crack and this rumble as you hear collapsing stone.
I think Silavar rolls out of his bedroll. That's annoying. Rolls.
Dan just ate a roll.
Yep.
Josh will edit
so
that
many
out
rolls.
Fine.
Silavar ducks out of his bedroll and summons his sword immediately and kind of crouches in the dust as it kind of billows through the cavern looking for an enemy.
Can I make a point of order real quick?
What's up?
Long rest?
Yes.
Cool. I think
That's the dust.
I think
Good role playing. Get an inspiration.
Ooh,
Sorry.
is that all it takes?
No.
Gideon comes out of his trance, immediately reaches for his crossbow and like rolls into some dark recess and begins looking around to see if he can tell what is going on, if we're under attack or if there's something else.
What are Xavier and Savarkeen doing?
Xavier pushes out of his bedroll and looks up, sees the dust. I imagine that dust actually cloaks your infravision, maybe even more than normal vision, because you're getting that ambient temperature.
Probably makes everything look kind of blurry. Yeah.
So I think his actual reaction, because he is more used to also dealing with light, is to cast dancing lights kind of just above him, trying to see if there's another way to see through what's happened.
Savarkeen, you just see her from the back, and she's curled up on one of those bedrolls, and the camera turns around, and her eyes are wide open, and she has her Pewafwi covering her mouth, and she's her eyes are wide. You can tell she's listening and watching and smelling, and she's going to try to perceive if anything is moving its way towards us.
How about everyone give me perception checks?
Perception motion?
Perceptive motion.
14 for Xavier.
9 for Silivar.
Flat roll, huh?
Yeah.
23 for Jidden.
Savarkeen is very still, 24.
Ooh.
Excuse me, it's a 10. I have a +1.
You do.
Nice.
What did you say, Matt? 14?
No, 23.
23 and a 24 for Savarkeen. All right. The two guys with the highest scores, anyway. Xavier casts these dancing lights around the ceiling, and it allows all of you to kind of get a better idea of where the dust seems to be coming from. The crack in the wall that leads to a shaft that quickly descends deeper into the Underdark. The only way down has just dust billowing out of it. It's like, you see, if you've ever seen videos of like a mine collapse or anything, like the way it just kind of pours out. And that is exactly what's happening. You see that, all of you see that just for a second until your vision is even more obscured. Everyone is coughing, shouting. Gideon, Savarkeen, the two of you do a quick just assessment of who's in the room. Are there threats? Where is Fenra? That sort of thing. And you realize that there's quite a few members of the raiding party not in this room. You guys both got really high scores. So besides the four of you, there's only 8 others. You lost 6 during the raid, which means that 6, including Fenra and Vass, are unaccounted for. So Fenra, Vass, and then 4 randoms are missing.
All right. 6 lost, so there's 21 others besides us.
Yep.
And
6 missing as of right now, and 6 lost during the battle.
Gotcha.
Which leaves you guys plus 8, random Dark Elf warriors.
Do we know if they're House Tuantarl?
You didn't get a good look of who was in here. You kind of were just counting forms. But this raiding party is actually from the school, which means that there's a good variety of houses represented. You'll have to get a better, everyone here by name, and you can assess that kind of.
What are all those names?
In a minute. Yeah, I got them right here, actually. Fuck you. Take away that inspiration I gave you for coughing.
Savarkeen starts helping Drow to their feet.
Okay.
And starts moving them towards the way we're leaving.
There is no way to leave. There's the tunnel that just collapsed.
That's right.
And then there's the crack in the ceiling that leads out into the surface.
I was looking at my spell cards, Jake. Forgive me.
You all see these dancing lights above, and the dust begins to settle. That crack in the ceiling is actually covered with tree branches and some canvases because you all are trying to hide down here.
Is there a threat? Does anyone see anything?
You're all having a lot of trouble breathing.
Silivar keeps kind of backing, staying low to the ground, almost in a crouch, and working his way to the outside edge of the cave that we're in, so he has his back to a wall.
Plus a bunch of trustworthy people around you.
Mm-hmm. You hear kind of some coughing, and to your left, you hear Silivar say, kind of lowly, I see nothing.
Leaping out of the rubble towards that crack up top, there's a giant spider. And it starts crawling and pushing some of those branches and leaves and boughs, and starts making an opening for this smoke to escape.
As you pull these branches and this cloth down, you're all blinded by this light. You've all seen magical light, but you've never, any of you, seen anything like this. It's
Horrible.
awful.
Searing.
Yeah. It burns at your eyes. All 8 of them, Severkeen, as you pull this stuff down, but it also lets in this cold, fresh air. You see the other drow just sort of shielding their eyes, moving to the edges of the cavern to try to get out of the light.
Zavir had moved to the center of the cavern to be safe, and immediately is just repelled and kind of scurries towards the shadows, slides against a rock, looks around and says, "Where's the High Priestess?"
People are just coughing and gagging and, crying out from the sunlight. As everyone sort of gets their bearings, someone says, "She's not here."
That's along with Vass and 4 others.
Does it look like there's a portion of the cavern that has collapsed on them? Or
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
The cavern is complete. You're assuming the collapse came from down the tunnel. There's only one. There's essentially one big kind of oval-shaped room with one tunnel that leads out of it, and then the ceiling is the entrance to the surface.
Does anyone know if we're being attacked or being betrayed?
I see no attackers. That light, though, I can't see much.
Boy, a better wizard with no darkness.
Not a big thing in the Underdark.
I only first level for spells.
I think out of the dust, all of a sudden, Silivar is like up next to you, Josh, or up next to Savarkeen.
Zavir.
And he kind of puts a hand on your shoulder and kind of whispers closely to you, "I think the priestess has made a move.
Vass is gone.
Or at least unaccounted for. We must find our others."
I saw the spider above. Jidden could be anywhere in these shadows.
I'm close enough.
He kind of, Zavir jumps back when he hears your voice over his shoulder.
There's a shadow that's cast over you all as you look up and you see the black spiders like hovering over the crack, looking down at you.
How big is this cavern, Jake?
Maybe 60 feet from one
Okay.
end to the other.
So theoretically, we could have a conversation
Absolutely.
and not
Yeah.
be.
And there's still other people are shouting and
Yep.
yeah.
We kind of see forms moving
Yep.
through the dust. I say, if she's left them behind, it's likely they are not loyal to her.
Zavir moves towards where that tunnel was.
Okay.
As the dust starts to clear slightly, dispels the dancing lights, which are unnecessary at this point with the
Yeah.
light pouring in. Just trying to stay in the shadows and trying to get a better idea of exactly how complete this collapse is.
You make your way to that tunnel and you're able to go in about 10 feet. You recall on your way in here that it was maybe 100, 200 feet of a pretty steep incline. You were walking up a pretty steep sort of hill to get into this room. And you only need to take a few steps into that tunnel before you see just rock in front of you.
Complete collapse.
Yep. Give me an Arcana check.
Okie dokie. 14.
You feel static coming from the rock.
Energy.
Yeah.
Zavir moves back towards the corner he was in, and instead of shouting out to the whole party towards where Jin and Sai are, at least, and says, "The arcane has been called upon. Whatever did this, magics are at use. This is no natural occurrence."
The spider climbs down, and in the darkness between the crack and where she gets to you, she just walks out of the shadows, standing upright. You say, "Arcane."
Do you talk like that through your little spidery mouth?
No, he
changed.
transformed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to show her transform on screen. She never transforms on screen.
We don't have the budget for
Yeah,
that.
say that.
That's a lot.
And it's just not going to look good with like a media
Yeah,
budget.
I was warned that arcane magic works differently up here, especially those of house wizards.
Josh, that is true. Wizards are usually not allowed to go onto the surface. You being allowed to go onto the surface was an exception. There was another wizard with this raiding party, but he waited here in the cavern. His name is Balo. You look around and you don't see him.
Is Balo here?
No.
Yeah, Jake, I know I didn't have the best roll on that Arcana. Do I feel that magic, that static, is arcane in nature versus divine?
You do.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's eyeing, the Savarkeen is eyeing Zavir very coldly this whole time.
I was in a deep and peaceful sleep after a fine night of hunting. Balo is missing, sister.
Devin, because you had kind of asked this before, you know that Balo is a master of Sorcerer, which he's not a student. It doesn't mean he's like a fucking arcane master. It just means he's a teacher there. And you know
license, his union
that
license.
you know that he is allied with House Tuatharl. You don't remember what house he's part of, some minor house, but you do know that he is close to Fenra Tuatharl.
High Priestess Fenra is missing as well.
Now that you think about it, you look around, the other 4 dark elves that are missing are also allies of that house or relations to it in some way.
She thinks about her brother for just a moment. We need to pursue them. We need to move.
Now,
Find another way into the
remind
Underdark.
you
It's sunny
of
outside.
how the last game ended, with Pitrix warning you all that the rules of Dark Elf Society, your houses are going to make a move against House Tuatharl. They're going to destroy the entire house. However, one of the rules of Dark Elf Society is that if a noble is left alive, then they can claim the right of retribution. They can name the house that attacked them, and that house is often destroyed. So if you don't get her before she gets back, then your houses could be in danger.
Savarkeen says this in not so many words.
It's something you all have known your whole lives.
Sure.
But for the camera's sake, a
I
little
think
bit of exposition.
Cut. But Savarkeen, I think, warned them about this because you had told us before the game.
I think you
in
had.
in the second
Yep.
episode.
Just a little reminder. I mean, I know we played last week and all, but
Yeah. Yes.
What do you suggest? Do we move tons of solid rock? I do not see another way.
one of the random raid members, you know that he's part of a house that is known to be very proficient miners. They have a lot of slaves, and you see him looking at the tunnel.
What do you see, brother? Our wizard says the arcane.
He shrugs and he says, I don't know if it was the arcane, but it's a lot of rock. It's not an accident, that's for sure. And knowing the pitch of this tunnel, the fact that it's not all rolling downhill, I would need mining equipment, at least a dozen slaves, and then it would take me probably 2 days to clear this.
Zavir moves close to Savarkeen.
She pulls her hood up over her head.
Says quietly, "You must put the voice in their ear. They must know that we have been betrayed, that the High Priestess has lost favor. Inspire them."
Another soldier says, "The supplies are missing."
That'll be enough of an explanation. They will know we have been betrayed.
Savarkeen's eyes are just slivers.
Savarkeen, you actually notice, looking around, this is what dark elves do, is, vie for position, and they always want to know who's in charge. And looking around at what remains of this raiding party, you see a lot of eyes are on you. These are all lesser males of mostly lesser houses. And simply by the fact that you are a female and a priestess, they're all kind of by default looking to you for what to do next.
Audience, Devin is actually preening right now.
Zavir whispers to himself as he starts to turn away from Savarkeen, and he casts guidance on her.
I don't have a D4.
Unprepared, -1 inspiration.
Fucking rookie.
Savarkeen stands up. She doffs the Pawafwi, the hood. We have been betrayed by Fenra Tu and Tarl. She wishes to leave us here while she offs to Menzoberranzan
Why?
to conspire on the destruction of our houses.
Someone else says she lost her blessing. You all saw it.
She failed in her task.
Did you see how long it took her to get to the church?
Be quiet, Severe. She stands and looks at the other men.
Yes, sister.
You hear, you have a really good perception.
Yeah.
You hear someone whisper to a friend of theirs, "What about her brother?"
He is as much my brother as he is yours. We are all as one, especially when we go to the surface.
That same elf says, "Has he betrayed you?"
If he stands with Fenra, then yes. But there are many threads along a web. My brother is clever.
Jake, I'm going to assess the individuals, see if anyone's either upset or angry or reaching for a weapon, like they could make a move to claim power now. And I just want to kind of assess if that threat is present.
Give me an insight roll.
Cool.
Good thinking, Dan, but you have the lowest insight of the group.
12.
A good personal insight, bad character.
I'll give you this with a 12.
13.
DC 13.
You see that a lot of them are kind of taking inventory. How much provisions do they have in their personal packs? What do other people have? What is missing are the packs of provisions and traveling gear. Getting to the surface took weeks, and you needed a lot of climbing gear. There was even a couple magical folding boats that Ballo had in his pack. And all of that equipment and all of the food is gone. You guys only have what was in your personal packs.
So even if we, which we will, plan to go back, we don't have the resources to make it.
You have whatever is on your character sheet.
I have 3 folding
Knives.
boats.
Probably you all have lots of knives. That's all I remember.
Okay. But no one seems to be overtly...
Nope. A lot of that sort of taking inventory, which is more of just a looking out for themselves thing.
Sure, yeah.
But thing about Dark Elf society is, I mean, like, you guys are drilled from a very young age to respect the authority of the priestesses. And
It would probably be a lot more, I think to myself that it would be a lot more chaotic if she wasn't here.
It would.
In terms
then it would be a power struggle.
Yep.
But what's more likely is that some of these guys just take off.
Interesting.
Zavir is kind of sitting back looking.
You can see Silavar kind of slowly moving his way around the cavern, and you can tell that he's watching each person, like looking from drow to drow.
Zavir is observing and looking as Savarkeen kind of has spoken before them. And he says, we must listen to the closest thing we have to a priestess, our dear acolyte. If we do not return to Menzoberranzan before the High Priestess, she will blame her failures on all of us, bringing death to us and shame to our houses.
That drow who I said was investigating the tunnel, we'll call him Chorus. He says, we don't have the skill or the equipment to dig this out. I mean, if we try to raid a local village and take some slaves and some mining equipment, but this is going to take days at the best, and that's if we happen to find skilled laborers.
No. There's another way to the Underdark. Another way to Menzoberranzan. I know this way. And the gift of Lulth is still with us. She holds up her scepter, and she shoots a dart. It's this little bony dart, and it hits the top of that crack, and then web shoots down to the ground, and she goes and stands next to it.
Stand in the sunlight?
Yes.
Okay. You're all... It's haven't adjusted fully to this light, but what's really interesting is just seeing Savarkeen standing in the light. You've never seen a dark elf in such bright light before. The way her black spider engraved armor sort of shimmers and shines you've never seen anything like it. And, as you look up to this crack and you just see the glow of light coming from outside, and you feel that cold wind.
Zavir moves quickly through the shadows, kind of scurries along the edges towards where Savarkeen is. It says, we must work together and follow our priestess.
We will walk through the light.
What? There's a couple people, a couple elves start just mumbling, saying, it'll burn, it'll kill us.
She has this incredulous look. She holds up her hand. Do you see me burn? Do you watch me die? Her ashen skin is like reflecting like Edward's in Twilight.
Silavar takes a step forward into the light to stand near her.
Brother.
Come. This is the way. If we are to save our house, if we are to save all our houses, he kind of looks across the group. We must follow her.
Loth is speaking to her. She is wise. All the sages say, as damning as the light is, the greatest threat is to our eyes. With any extended exposure, everything we have, our enchantments are at risk. But to move quickly, we are at no greater risk than standing here, waiting for our doom to fall.
Truth. They'll come. They'll see it. The smoke. They'll find them.
Can we imagine as you all are making your case, you're moving to
The light.
Yeah.
Zavir has moved towards you and ducked back into the shadows as he coaches everyone into the sun.
You see the rest of the raiding party, these 8 male dark elves. They sort of start following the lead of a few who are putting up hoods, covering their faces, covering all of their skin because they're like, they don't know what it's going to do. They feel the heat from the sun, and so they're covering their bodies and and their faces, putting up these hoods. And one of them comes up to you and says, Lady Vendry, I'll be the first.
Go, brother.
And his name is Telik. He starts climbing. And a few others follow him, and he sort of motions to these others, and they spread out 3 points, kind of cover everyone as everyone comes up.
Savarkeen will be the last one up. She'll see that everyone else goes up the web.
The second to last one up then is Severe.
There's this moment where they're standing together in the...
You must keep us all together. Remember what our goal is and make sure they are focused on that.
Zavir, High Priestess Fenra is correct. You do talk too much. But if you advise me in private, I will listen. Not in front of the others. You do not speak to me in such a way. I know why you're here. My suspicions have not lifted yet.
Of course, sister. I follow your blessings.
When the two of you get to the surface, you see the rest of the raiding party spread out, pretty well hidden, but still shielding their eyes, trying to stay in shadows. The surface world during the day is oppressive. The first time you've ever been in direct sunlight, you just feel the heat, and it's worse than usual, brighter than usual, because it reflects off of the snow, and it makes it so hard to see, and your eyes won't switch to infravision, which is more comfortable. So it takes you all a good maybe 10 minutes before people aren't completely stunned and incapacitated. You guys all know you get disadvantage on everything, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Fun stuff.
Is it still the old rule that our equipment loses its power as well?
Not instantly, but
Okay.
it will degrade very quickly.
Got it.
Yeah. If you stay in the sun for too long, it literally melts.
Yeah, she's going to take off that Pewafwi and she's going to store it.
Okay. I'm not sure if that would be, I would say, Zavir mentioned it, and Savarkeen, I'd say you know that as well. You've from your studies.
Yeah, we were told probably when
yeah.
we received them as a
Yeah,
gift.
yeah. But it's not necessarily the most common knowledge.
Her family would probably know as they've been to the surface.
Raiders.
True. But I mean, just as like a priest or a wizard in training would learn a little bit more about the surface, so you'd know that.
As we're climbing up, before we get back to the others, Zavir says to Savarkeen, do you know a route that we can follow, or are you acting on impulse?
There's a way into the Underdark, under the holy place of Saloon. She looks at you.
Back there?
Yes. I have seen it.
Yes, sister, lead on. I will follow.
You start moving the raiding party back towards the village.
Stay close to Jidin and Silavar. We do not know if any conspirators lie with us.
Okay. Dan, Salivar does not have disadvantage, right?
Correct.
Okay. You notice something in the distance. You're heading west towards this village.
Mm-hmm.
Same route you took last time. You're on this hill, kind of overlooking the village. And no one is really trying to look out very far because they're having trouble because it's so bright. The sun
Sure.
reflecting off
Yeah.
the snow. But you look a little bit north of the village, past it, and you see glints shining from the sun and moving. And you can tell, even from this very, very, very far away, it's armored men headed toward the city, toward the town. It's not at the city.
Salivar is up towards the kind of the front line, maybe not the first, but maybe on a wing, and he's on a just come over a rise, and you see him hold up his hand in a fist for the party to stop, and he turns after 3 or 4 beats and then comes down and greets you, Savrakeen.
Dan, it's probably 30 men. They're wearing metal armor. That's about all you can tell. You do think you will get, they're not moving super fast. They're marching, but you will get to the town before them, but not by much.
If I hadn't seen your armor in the light, I would not have recognized it. But there is an armored group moving towards the city.
You can all see it. I mean, it kind of hurts to look at, but you
They're
can all
on the
see
road
it.
north. There. He points.
We need to move quickly to find Shadow. Lead the way.
Silavar kind of pushes through the group out into the front, looks down the slope towards the town, and makes a quick assessment for one of the rolling slopes to stay on the far side of it, so that northern road can't see us along the ridge line either. So we'll stay just below that line and move towards the city.
All right. As you approach the open, destroyed gates of the city, of the town, rather. Keep calling it a city. It's just a large town. You see bodies in the streets. You see crows pecking at them. There's no one alive here.
I know normally I would remember this from last week, but did we burn anything?
I don't think so.
No. All right.
As you make your way down the street, you see the occasional web with a body hanging out of it.
The soldiers show up and it's like, what happened?
You see a broken mask in the street as well.
They will be here in less than an hour.
Xavier bumps into you. He looks miserable. He's completely downcast, hood pulled low. And as you stop, he kind of bumps into you and pushes back and says, "We must get below."
Savrakeen has her eyes downcast. She's holding something in her hand, and she's just rolling it around. I don't know if she's ever seen one before.
Fidget spinner?
No, it's a white owl feather.
Okay.
And she's just rolling it in her fingers, and she runs her fingers along the edges, and she closes her eyes. She feels that sun on the other side of them, and she opens them up, and her eyes are just they have these little slits, these black slits in them. I'm going to cast Enhance Ability on myself, and I'm going to gain the owl's wisdom. Give me advantage on wisdom checks.
Cool.
Nice. They will be here in less than an hour.
We need to move quickly.
You make your way past the bodies of the priests of Saloon in the street, as well as Fenra's two handmaidens who were killed in that same battle, and to the front doors of that cathedral. As I mentioned before, this cathedral is sort of out of place. It's way bigger than a town this size needs. And it is dedicated to Saloon, the Moon Maiden. The entrance, the front door, is a pile of corpses. This is where the main fighting occurred. Can everyone give me investigation checks?
Can I do something else rather than look at the bodies? She's looking out now through the streets to see if there's anyone that maybe survived and is wandering around, someone who might find us.
You can roll perception for that.
Jay, I just rolled my portents, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I got 2 17s.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was wild.
And then
Damn.
I bombed my investigation roll.
So you're going to use one?
No.
No.
You have to do it before.
Oh, okay. All right. You bombed your investigation.
10.
Damn.
And a 9 for my investigation.
Dirty 20.
Ooh. And how'd that perception check go?
I got a
Perception?
6 with a 1 on the die.
A 6 with a 1 on the die.
Humble brag.
Savrakeen, you see movement in an alleyway.
We need to move now, past the bodies. She's not looking at you. She's looking down another way?
You all move in. Jidden, you notice the bodies have been moved. Someone started to organize these bodies. In the middle of the doorway, there's still a pile of corpses. I mean, it was a really bloody battle, but someone has started to line them up and sort of organize them. And as your eye kind of follows that line of corpses, you see in the pews just a little wisp of smoke. And you take a few steps over there and you see what looks like a hastily covered up campsite. The rest of the elves make their way into the cathedral, try to get a little bit of shelter from the sun, which is tough because the ceiling is these enormous stained glass windows. So what happens is the entire room is just bathed in a kaleidoscope of colors.
Zavir is eager and knows the way to the catacombs because he's the one that kind of went that way. So he literally is almost oblivious, not looking around, starts to move immediately in that direction and turns back and says, "Come, let us go below."
Brother, look. It's a campsite. The bodies. Someone's here. Something. Sister.
There are more outside. Zavir, where do we need to go?
Down underneath. The way to the passages are below. There's a secret door. That leads the way we led the... He stops and looks around, make sure there's none of the other... There is a way below.
A couple of the other raiders have gone over to you, Jidden, and are looking at the campsite. They have weapons drawn. It is, in fact, a campsite. One of them says, the wood is still warm. And you see a kettle was left behind, kind of thrown to the side. And you reach out to touch it, and you pull your hand back because it is hot.
How many?
Which is probably why it wasn't taken.
How many? Can you tell?
Someone's got to be a tracker, right?
I'm hoping.
One of them looks around and says 6, 8. You think it's bullshit. You think they're just totally guessing. I rolled a 1.
Is that drift?
Child.
Drift the ranger?
Drift it.
Driftizzle?
Jake, I start murmuring the incantations of Armor of Agathis.
Okay.
However many they are close.
Savrakine's walked ahead, just quietly, and she looks down at all the patterns on the floor that the light are casting, and she closes her eyes, and no one else sees it because she's ahead, but there's this smile across her face, remembering the dance in the dream.
This is the place where you danced. As you look around the center of this cathedral, on the floor between the pews, you see this elaborate mosaic of tile around your feet. And you start to kind of walk around in circles. And you have to actually stop yourself from dancing. You have to make a conscious effort to not sort of gleefully skip. But you step over some bodies and you push, you rub away some blood. And
With her foot.
You notice that this mosaic is some sort of map, but it isn't a map of a. It reminds you, you've seen maps of the plains, and it looks more like that than it does a map of a physical location.
Interlocking circles and rings.
Zavir's in the doorway of the cathedral trying to find Shadow. His hands kind of twitch as he rubs his thumb across his finger, like almost rhythmically. It says, "We must get below. We must find our way."
A pew is just being pushed aside. Savarkeen is clearing in around this big mosaic. She's clearing the floor. She picks up one of those bodies and just drags it along. She's going to start moving stuff.
Silavar is standing at the other side of the doorway, looking out at the town.
The rest of the party, the raiding party, kind of stops at this noise, and all eyes are on Savarkeen now, except for Dan.
And then he's not looking back, and he says to you, "She is either mad or blessed. We will find out soon enough."
One and the same.
Zavir, join me. She's standing.
Yes, sister.
She's standing just outside the ring.
You can see Silavar, like his just the slightest smirk, knowing that you want nothing to do with it, as he stands kind of looking out at the town.
He moves forward, and like I'm expecting with a Temple of Saloon, there's probably a lot of windows. So as he's moving in, like he has to like move into the sunlight to go where Savarkeen is. So he kind of pulls the hood up tighter and moves obediently right up to you.
Your discomfort is mine as well, brother. What do you make of this?
You can tell that he is not being observant. Like when you say that, and he kind of stops and starts to look around.
You notice this mosaic on the floor that he has been uncovering, and you immediately recognize it. You've seen almost an identical picture in a book that you studied. You know that it is a star map.
These are the false gods the surface dwellers worship. The illusion lights that dance above them, the stars of their sky. They fall prey to following them to guide their lives.
This is a way. It is a map.
A map. This cannot guide us. This points to the void, the emptiness that lies above the surface dwellers. How can this help us, sister?
Because all things exist between these stars in this void. This is our way. Now look. If something vexes you, be out with it. Otherwise, we need to get back down to Menzoberranzan.
Give me a moment. See, if you're looking closely, you can see Zavir's thumb kind of rests on a finger on his hand as he clenches it, and he whispers under his breath. He casts guidance on himself, and he tries to clear his discomfort and focus on this map to what Savarkeen was saying and examine it in a new light and hopefully get a new roll on investigation.
Can I give him my inspiration point to add to his roll?
Yeah, so if you guys remember, the way inspiration is working in this game is you can add it to any roll or subtract it to any roll. It doesn't have to be your own. So yes, you can roll and add that to his roll. Go ahead and give me an investigation roll. And while he's doing that, Jidden, where are you exactly?
I think at this point, Jidden sees that our main concern is going to be this group coming to the town. So he's probably gone up into the tower or the highest point that he can get to, and is trying to keep an eye out on how long it's going to take for this group to get to us. Kind of being like that, the time counter.
You're very nimble. You managed to climb up to the roof without much trouble, even though climb is technically a strength skill.
Fair.
But there's plenty of handholds and places to climb. And once you get up to that balcony, you climb out onto the roof and you climb up to the top of it. It's actually a little easier because there's a lot of spider webs up here for some reason.
Weird.
That's weird.
Jake, asking for a friend, do these this awesome, cool rule that you came up with, these inspiration dice, do the 6s explode?
I think we actually said they do. I think we
wild
did.
die.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Matt, you get up to the bell tower just in time to hear. You see just outside of the town this column of soldiers approaching. You've never seen anything like it. Soldiers in Menzoberranzan don't advertise themselves.
Yeah.
They don't carry banners and make noise. They sneak through the shadows and kill you silently. But these men are literally announcing their approach and waving banners that identify where they're from, which is just wild to you. But they're here. They'll be at the cathedral in minutes.
I think Jidin grabs the rope of the bell in the tower and uses his acrobatic abilities to slide down as fast as he can.
I love it.
And once he's halfway down, he starts.
Tell you what, give me an acrobatics roll.
Okay. That's going to be a 15.
15. You do it, and you do it without ringing the bell.
Oh, thank God.
You like loop that rope around something so that it's not pulling the bell, and then you literally just slide down to the ground, and boom! All of a sudden, you're standing next to Savrakeen. You all heard that as well, that horn. Josh, how'd you do on that roll?
Zavir suddenly kind of becomes laser focused, sort of internalizes some strength and puts all his focus on this map. I used a point of inspiration, got a 6, exploded, 25 total.
You focus on this map and you're trying to identify what these different celestial bodies are. And you remember reading about what stars are and planets, and you see Faerun. You identify what is Faerun on this. And then you see what must be Faerun's moon of Saloon. And you look at it, you focus on it, and you realize that while it is just a carving in the floor, it moves.
Okay. Like there's some sort of pivot point
Yeah.
on the floor. Okay. He reaches into his boot, pulls out a dagger, turns the pommel, and he finds that he can kind of rest the point of the pommel on that indication of the moon. And he starts to kind of put some...
You start to move it in different directions, and then you think about it, and you move it in orbit of Faerun.
You hear like this heavy door closing across. You see one of the big doors to the church is closed, and Salivar is closing the second door as well.
Gets a little bit darker in here, but sure enough, that stone of the floor grinds, and as it starts to move, you see that there is in fact a crease. The entire orbit of the moon is a hatch, and as you turn it, it kind of spins and comes up like a manhole cover almost, revealing a hole that just leads into darkness.
Zavir looks up at Savrakeen.
Satisfied look on her face.
Wise eyes, sister.
In a skillful hand.
We have no time. Go.
Salivar is throwing this huge, large kind of bar across the doors.
A couple of the raiders are helping you move bodies in order to close it. You have to move a bunch of bodies just to get the doors to close.
Yep.
And they help you. And then they actually, once you put that bar down, they start stacking those bodies against the back of the door.
Awesome.
You hear a voice, stand aside, get to the hatch. She holds her scepter out, and I'm going to use 2 charges of my wand and shoot webs at the backs of the door.
I like how your web has become so utilitarian.
That's great.
There's a hole that leads into darkness. It's like a well. It's about the same size as a well. Maybe it is a well.
I think Zavir, actually, he's been by far holding back. And at this point, after revealing it, maybe some pride spurring him on, he's the first one to descend.
Nice. There's no ladder. There's no handholds. You don't know how far down it goes.
I jump.
You jump.
And I cast Featherfall.
Ooh, I like it.
You go down about 4 inches.
Featherfall lets you do how many people?
Up to 5.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how it's supposed to work, but I'll say that the first 5 to jump can just featherfall. Say it's a,
Sure.
it lasts for a beat, basically.
Yeah.
So you jump, and most of you have some arcane. You all have some arcane training. You hear him say these words and release a spell.
It's probably a very common spell in the Underdark.
It probably is. Yeah,
Can Savarkeen make the other men go first?
absolutely.
Okay.
Whatever. You're in charge, buddy.
She's the last one down.
Jidin doesn't hesitate.
Okay.
Salivar is stands at the end waiting for you to go.
She looks at you.
I kind of figure we'll descend and then call up to them with what we see if we need to lower a rope or anything.
Okay. It's way farther than you thought it would be. You start to get a little bit nervous about how long your spell lasts, and then your feet touch the ground. The walls aren't that far apart, so while you don't really have enough rope, those who don't have Featherfall can try to climb down just by kind of putting their hands and feet on either side of the wall.
We have 12.
There are 12 of you altogether, correct?
Okay.
Savarkeen can go down as a spider, and then 5 others. So that means 6 people need to make climb checks, which could potentially be lethal. But
I think about our odds and our mission ahead, and I say, I call up. It kind of echoes. It is far down. I can let 5 descend. Jump.
5 more?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll cast Featherfall one more time.
Okay. Savarkeen, you are the last to go. You're counting how many. You do the math quick. You know that one person is going to have to climb. However, not including you.
Okay.
You'll also
Okay.
have to. However, someone's missing. Everyone makes their way into the hole. You're the last one down. But you're just counting raiders, and you count 7 when there should be 8.
Salivar was waiting to the end with Savarkeen.
So we'll say you're there as well for
Yep.
that count.
He's standing at the edge, looking at you, looking down.
One is missing.
We have no time, sister.
He is Drow. You would not understand. She turns and starts calculating. She's looking. She's kind of frantic.
Dan, if you want to take advantage of Featherfall, you have to go now.
I am a weapon. You are our mind. Go now. I will look for him. Salivar pushes her.
Okay.
You go down
Yeah, I go down.
with your -1 strength.
You and the others that fall, you fall. Because Featherfall, I can't catch you until you're 60 feet away. So you're plummeting. And maybe as you see, through your infravision adjusting, you see the ground swarming up to you. And almost like at the last
I love what
second.
that must look like, because as you fall, your vision probably changes to infravision as you go down this tunnel. You're probably just by instinct trying to grab the walls and slow yourself down. But as your vision shifts back to the more comfortable form that you're used to, you see these heat forms below you getting closer and closer. And then boom, suddenly you slow and hit the ground softly.
She remembers the dream, and she just remembers falling in the part before she woke up. She heard the Underdark calling, and as she closed her eyes once she jumps down, and then when she lands, she opens them again.
All right. You're all at the bottom except for Salivar.
Where the others?
Insisted on a solo adventure, so you can all go home.
Right?
Yeah, I called dibs on it earlier, so.
Dan, take an inspiration.
Danke. Gonna need it.
You're all alone in the Temple of Saloon. The sun is warm through the stained glass windows. There's piles of dead villagers all around you. And you can hear the clanking metal armor of 30 soldiers approaching the doors.
I try to put that out of my mind for a moment, and I think about the night before when I was here, and kind of the layout of this cathedral that I got very briefly while I was here. And I immediately head for the rear quarters where the clergy were. I know that Jidden had kind of scouted out that area and had seen the High Priestess come from there. It's very possible that someone may have gone to look there to loot, or that may be the first stop on the way to other parts of the church that are kind of cordoned off from this main area.
You make your way in that direction. You pass that little camp site that Jidden had found. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, appears a half-elf.
Like previously invisible?
Correct.
My weapon flashes into my hand.
He's wearing what looks sort of like a leather coat, a wide-brimmed hat. He's got blonde, shaggy hair and a little bit of a 5 o'clock shadow. And he has a rapier in one hand and then some sort of instrument. You don't even regard it for very long, but something weird in his other hand. And he's pointing the rapier in your direction.
I don't immediately attack.
He says, "Where did your friends go?" Not going with them.
He stares at him blankly, doesn't understand what he's saying.
You don't speak Elven.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he kind of squints his eyes a little.
He repeats it in the goblinoid.
I know pieces of goblinoid. And he kind of crudely speaks it back in kind of the typical words that Drow use towards goblins. And he says, "Gone they are."
You hear a voice from above the balcony say, "Were you looking for this one in Draconic?" No.
Nope.
You hear something.
Not a very smart guy.
And then the body of one of your companions, one of the raiders, is thrown down into the pews.
He kind of regards the situation for a moment. What is up there?
You look into that balcony above you, and I don't know if you've ever seen a dragonborn before.
Nope.
But you see a dragon man in heavy armor. He is enormous. He's as big as an ogre. And there's two other forms standing next to him. A gnome and a human woman who is... you actually probably don't even realize she's human. She has no hair, and her body is covered in tattoos. And the three of them are up in the balcony looking down at you.
He turns and sprints for the hole.
Okay. The half-elf who was close to you doesn't try to pursue. He just kind of chuckles. And you jump in.
I kind of slide along the bottom of the floor into the hole and drop.
All right. Give me some...
So I'm going to... I don't know if you're going to allow this.
What do you got?
So one of my invocations, I have Devil Sight. So I can see in magical and non-magical darkness 120 feet.
Yep.
As he is plummeting down, can I Misty Step to the bottom as I approach?
God, I'm sure there's so many fucking Reddit posts.
There's probably so many.
Whether or not you
can jump
lose,
out of a dragon.
Do you lose centrifugal force? Or...
I'm sure there must be.
Energy cannot be destroyed, so it's transferred through the spell.
Jake knows the nuances of this conversation already.
Roll physics.
Roll physics. Okay, I'm not a smart man.
If you dive and Misty Step, do you slow down? I don't fucking know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't want to.
You do, but you get a grade 3 concussion.
I don't want
as
to
your
open
brain
this
fucking
argument.
rattles in your head.
Let the dice decide. Acrobatics check to see if you snap the
Acrobatics
magic.
check or athletics with advantage for using Misty Step.
Okay. Acrobatics or athletics using with advantage. Can I choose when to use my inspiration? After?
Yeah, you can use it after.
All right. That is a 15. I will use an inspiration. Jake is ominously silent.
I'm laughing at Josh's banana.
Yeah, it is.
That's not a euphemism, by the way.
It's suggestive.
It's girthy.
It's straighter than a usual banana, but it's a little crooked.
It's not. I mean, if you're using the banana of measurement system, it's not a good banana to measure. It's 1.5 bananas.
Yeah, easily.
I get that a lot.
You fall. You plummet. You try to grab the wall. Do you use acrobatics or athletics?
I used athletics.
Athletics, strength.
Or excuse me, no, I definitely used acrobatics.
Acrobatics. Okay.
Yep.
Dexterity then. You try to grab the walls on your way down, and you just feel it kind of the stone under your fingernails as it tears. And at the last moment, you misty step and you roll to the floor. You actually roll into a few of the other members of the raiding party. They kind of break your fall, and you're breathing heavily. Your hands hurt. Take a D6.
Kind of bleeding.
Take a D6 damage.
Sure. 4.
Okay.
Ow. He's breathing heavily, and he kind of stands shakily. He says, "He's dead, and we must go quickly."
Savarkeen helps you up.
Did soldiers have an advance party?
I do not know what they were. They were different.
Does anyone speak Gnomish?
Zavir does.
Okay. Zavir, you all hear a voice yell down from above. It's the same voice that you heard before. That half-elf.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "You'll pay for what you've done. Done. And it echoes.
I do not know what language it speaks.
Zavir
You could tell that it tried several languages.
Yep.
shouts back up in Gnomish and says, "Paying back for centuries of repression." And he turns to you after he utters some weird, clunky words.
Savarkeen understands. Her eyebrow is raised at you. A little smile cracked.
It speaks Gnomish. Says, "We shall pay."
It spoke many things. We should leave, though, quickly. Not only does that raiding party advance, but they are unnatural, those above.
This is a perfect spot to deal with them if they dare descend.
Dan, it is certainly not a perfect spot because you can tell this room that you're in is holy, just like the cellar that you were in when you fought that woman.
Salivar shaking his head negatively. He says, "Do not speak so quickly. I believe that this place is cursed. We cannot use our magics here.
Won't stop my blade."
I say we move." He looks over at Savarkeen.
Savarkeen does a little flourish of her hand, and let me see if I need any. She picks up from her pouch. It's a little dried, like mushroom root, and she produces it in her hand and cracks it, and then crumbles it in her hand and opens them up, and there's mushrooms, just like we grow in the Underdark, in her hand.
While Zavir is taunting people in Gnomish and Savarkeen is, I assume, healing Salivar.
I'm producing good berries, but they're mushrooms.
Good shrooms.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Shrooms are good.
Jidden, you and several of the other members of the raiding party have sort of spread out around this room, and you're kind of looking around, and you realize that you're in a big circular room. The floor has all of these crescent shapes on it, and it's even, with the very limited knowledge you have of the surface, you identify that the entire floor of this room is different phases of the moon. It's one big sort of picture of the moon and all the different phases. And having some arcane training yourself, you notice that in the center of the room, right where you kind of fell, there is a series of arcane glyphs. Even without casting Detect Magic, you know that there is some sort of magic on this floor.
Sister Savrakeen, there's, look. These. You're much better than I at this. Can you please tell us, protect us?
Savrakeen looks up the hole. We don't have much time. I'm going to cast Detect Magic. So I say, stand aside.
Yes.
Let me see. And as she waves her hand, there's almost a light that is escaping down that hole and illuminates the floor. And I'll cast Detect Magic. I can sense the presence of magic within 30 feet.
The floor is magical. There's this sort of circle right under the hole that you came down that has runes all around it and is enchanted. And then going out from that in a giant spiral that goes around the entire circle of this room is a line of sort of enchantment. And
Severe, move your lights there and there.
Severe blinks his eyes for a second. The bulbs appear. And then as he looks around, you see kind of like a black cloud across his face of anger. His eyes flash across Jid. You know if he's angry at you or at himself or not noticing it. But he looks to Savrakeen knowing that she'll recognize it.
You move your lights around and you can see. And then you hear a voice in your head. You know who she is. It doesn't surprise you. And she says, when the light of Saloon shines its strongest on this point, the stairway to the dark shall open. That's what it says.
Zavir's fingers flick over inside his hand, racing back and forth, his thumb tracing, and he kind of shakes his head and says, Saloon. She spreads her gaze down here. When she is at her peak, this is where they can see. This is the passage that they know to follow.
The ones outside, who saw them?
Aye.
Did they have the silver hair of the saloon?
They did not. They were unusual. A half-elf, some lizard creature, large, and a woman. The woman didn't have silver hair, did she?
She had no hair. And a gnome. They all look the same. You don't know if it was a man or a woman.
And a halfling or a gnome. I'm not sure which.
This sounds like an adventuring party.
The good guys.
Are there any other ways out of this room? Savrakeen starts looking around.
Nope. No doors.
There must be a way. If they had to descend down here, there is an opening. There is a way. This is why Saloon would cast her gaze down here. Step back. Step back from the circle. Zavir refocuses, kind of shouts and waves his hand, and casts guidance on himself again, and is going to try to investigate these runes, thinking about the voice he heard in his head and what it could lead to. Why light would ever shine down here, away from where these surface dwellers would want to go. There must be something they would seek.
Everything gets darker. Your infravision starts to fade away, and you're in true, complete darkness. You look up, and you can see the sun isn't at the right point where it would come all the way down this hole, but you can see it above you. You can see it slowly creeping down the wall of that tunnel above you. And in that complete darkness, there's insight. As you see that light creeping down, you realize only when it is at its peak will the light hit these runes on the ground.
The dancing lights have faded, and Zavir kind of like, his head snaps, and he casts a quick incantation, trying it, and he puts the dancing lights lined up vertically, stacked on each other, as if a ray of the moon coming straight down the shaft. Nice.
As you do that, you see those runes on the ground begin to glow, and then the spiral that you can already see, Savarkeen, that spiral of magic begins to glow, and the floor starts to actually shift and move, and everyone has to sort of find a spot that's solid as that spiral of the floor begins to descend and turn into a staircase.
Salivar sort of scrambles to one side. Is it loud?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it rumbles.
He keeps one eye on that descent or that shaft where we came down, and one eye on the floor that's shifting under his feet. He draws a dagger as he can't call his sword.
Okay.
Savarkeen is standing next to Zavir. She says quietly, "Well done, Zavir. It seems the moon did touch you, in a way."
Through your guidance, sister.
She looks up at the light.
You all make your way down the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
As you all make your way down the stairs, above, in the temple, we see the four companions. They look down into this hole, and the older woman with the shaved head and the tattoos says, "I know what you're thinking, Doril, but we're badly outnumbered. Our approach must be cautious." The Dragonborn says, "We can't just let them get away with this. Look what they've done. Dark elves are a formidable foe and more at home in these dungeons than the rest of us." And then the half-elf smirks. He holds up a finger dramatically, as if he's just come up with an idea. "But we have the advantage of knowing what they just walked into. We planned on going into the Citadel anyway. Let the Hollow take them, and we'll finish off whatever survives." You all make your way down this staircase, and at the bottom, it enters into a long hallway, just wide enough to be a little awkward as a hallway. It's about 12 to 15 feet wide, but it stretches on in both directions for probably the length of the entire cathedral above. And there's light at either end. There's two massive shadows that come from either end from the light that's being thrown across this room. And as your eyes adjust out of infravision to see the shadows, you see that in the center of the room, which is just where you've come down, these two shadows look like the silhouettes of lovers about to kiss. You can see that there are statues at the ends of this hall where these silhouettes are coming from. But, I mean, it's probably 200 feet to either end.
What manner of place is this?
It's strange.
This is not the wilds of the Underdark.
Saloon wants her believers to come here. This must be a cursed place.
Dan, you don't feel that holiness anymore.
We are further from her, though, now. Zavir. Her presence doesn't linger here like it did above.
Jake, do I think this is some kind of temple, some sort of holy place for Saloon or another god?
You don't think it's a holy place for Saloon. When he mentions that consecration isn't present here, it makes you think that maybe you've crossed some sort of barrier. Like maybe the reason that land wasn't consecrated wasn't just to protect people in it, but to create a barrier.
There is another possibility. That pit. There's no simple way to descend. This is not a place of worship. They're too afraid to go under anyway.
And a magical door bars the way.
What you felt, Sai, could keep something out as much as it is, or more than it is, to let them in.
Salivar kind of flexes one of his hands. A banishment of sorts.
A shield, a protection. That abomination above that wretched structure of saloon, it had no place in that town, this mere backwater. For them to construct that out here must have been for another reason. Perhaps they built it solely out of fear of what lay beneath.
You two, move that way.
Yes, send the red shirts.
Who are you sending where?
A couple of these men. I'm going to send them to the statue of the lovers.
To the statues of the two lovers are on opposite ends of this hall, and the light behind them causes their shadows to stretch into the center of this hall.
What does this light look like? It's not
it's
torchlight.
Clearly magical. It's like a solid, like unflickering light, but it's pretty pale as well. So you're all pretty familiar in Menzoberranzan. Light is used, fairy fire and stuff like that are often used in art and architecture. They're used to extenuate statues and stuff like that. And that seems to be what this is as well. That's not an uncommon thing for where you're from. Where you're from, magic is so commonplace that it's often used for such frivolous tasks.
Mm-hmm. Looking around, like these statues, the way they're carved, is this reminiscent of any like society I've seen, anything I've studied?
Why don't you give me a history check?
Fishing for it.
And in order to do that, so you guys came down, the stairs came down and terminated in the center of this hall. So you're standing around where these two shadows meet. But in order to actually really look at the statues, you need to walk all the way down to one end of the hall. So I assume you do that if you're going to.
I do.
Right.
I look at Savrakeen.
She's right beside you.
And kind of look towards the soldiers and say,
We will look at the other one.
perhaps some others should come with me to investigate.
Your little meat shield.
I will come with you.
I just cast guidance on myself. So
anyone else want to make any sort of investigate or anything?
Salivar,
So let me know.
Yeah, Salivar wants to look at this staircase.
Okay. The one you just came down?
Yeah, is there any obvious trigger that may make it go back up?
Okay. You're looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, you're doing the history thing. Matt and Devin, what are you guys up to?
Savrakeen's keeping an eye on Zavir.
Okay. Jidden?
I think Jidden, he's probably just looking around to see if there's signs that anybody or anything else has been down here.
Okay. Give me a perception check on that.
Dirty 20.
Ooh. All right, Dan, we'll start with you. You were looking for any sort of mechanism to trigger the stairs.
Yeah.
You don't see any. In fact, while it made a rumbling sound, you don't think that there's anything really mechanical about this staircase. You think it's purely some sort of magical manipulation, and it's pretty strong.
Light triggered it to come down, but obviously it's still in light, so light wouldn't seem to be the answer.
It's not still in light, so you're not sure. Maybe you don't know if it's a delay timer or what.
That was from those dancing lights I cast that
caused it to trigger to come down.
Right.
I was wondering if, because it was now in darkness, if we brought light again, it would...
Yeah, you're not really sure. I mean, but it's not moving at the moment, and it's completely dark up there. Dirty 20, Matt. That was... You were kind of looking around, looking for signs of anything.
Yes.
No. There's dust on the ground, but it's pretty clear that no one has been here in a very long time. Nothing seems disturbed. You don't even feel one thing as a drow, being accustomed to the tunnels of the Underdark. You feel for air currents a lot. You take off your glove and you kind of hold your hand out as you move through here, and you don't feel anything. There's no disruption. You haven't. There are doors at the ends of the hall. Spoiler, but you haven't gone down there yet. But you can feel like there's no current. There's no airflow. There's no movement. No one has been in here for who knows how long.
I think Chidin, knowing that nobody's been here, he doesn't have any fear of being quiet. So he'll speak out. We are alone here. Nothing has been, but it's closed, it's stale. Sister, have you led us into a dead end?
She turns and looks at you.
Can you not feel it? It doesn't move.
Have you no faith even now, brother?
It's our first real faith-based game. Huh?
We are ever closer to the spider's web. If we are not intrepid, we will not find our way back home. Now is not the time to lose faith.
Jake, the symbols were on the floor that actually descended.
Correct.
So are they on the path that led down here?
They're on the steps. Yeah.
Salivar looks kind of down both ends of the hallway to see that most of the party has either gone left or right.
Everyone's sort of dispersed. Yeah.
He takes a few steps up and kneels down, and he does something that he's never shown anyone from Menzoberranzan. And he takes out his dagger, and on the kind of the pommel of it, he whispers a small incantation and holds it in the palm of his hand as light shines from the pommel.
Cast light?
Yep.
Damn.
And he's going to hold it tight in his
Okay.
hand and let it leak onto the floor where those symbols were.
The floor begins to grumble.
He hardly dismisses the light and takes a few steps back off of it and lets it
Close above you. You all hear this, the passage that you came down begin to close, and you stop what you're doing and look back. But pause there, because right before that happens, Josh, what was your history roll?
So Zavir is a sage. Arcana and history are his highest rolls.
This is foretelling Josh telling us you rolled a 9.
Before he's got a 39.
28.
You rolled a 19?
Wow.
Yeah,
28?
28 with guidance.
Okay.
This is from the
Damn.
early romantic period.
He knows who made it.
Oh, there's some.
We're good, guys.
At first you're thinking about religion. You're wondering what the religious significance is here, and you're coming up really short. You don't see any sort of iconography of any religion you are aware of. You're making your way down this hall towards the end. You start to look at some of the stonework, the way that the walls are carved very intricately. And it actually reminds you of pictures you've seen of old elven keeps. And when you get to the end of the hall, you are in front of a statue of an elf. An elven man. He's wearing a crown. And the way that the sculptor was very good, because the way that the crown and his hair, the way that the shadow projects the top of his head makes it look like a silhouette when it falls across that floor. But what you see in front of you is a sort of typical looking statue of a noble. And it occurs to you, you remember this very obscure list of elven nobles on the surface, different elven kingdoms from times past. And you remember a bloodline called the Lorels, which you had forgotten about, but that is the name of the town. And you look at the inscription below, and while I don't think you speak regular Elven, do you?
I do.
You do. It names this man as Lord Lorel. And you know that long ago, this was a noble family with a small kingdom on the surface.
He almost under his breath, Zavir says, Lorel. His eyes snap up to Savarkeen.
You don't, since you rolled so high, you remember some sort of story about a tragedy. You don't know the details, but you remember learning that he was murdered by his wife.
His eyes snap up, looks at Savarkeen. This stone, it is not shaped by those who live in it. This is perverted by the hands of the surface elves. You can see their overtly efforts at shaping it to their art. And this reflects a king, a minor king, a family called the Lorels.
You all hear the stairs begin to creak and close.
They reigned over a portion of their surface. There was some tragedy that befell them. This lord was said to have been slain by his very wife. He looks, his eyes, as he says it, glance to the far side, to the other figure.
It's quite far away, but it's definitely a woman.
Why they would ever carve this? Maybe to make amends for their mistake? This is strange, sister. Very strange. Elven hands of those kinds that live on the surface, they're not comfortable down here. But they spend as much effort down here as they would on any of their castles in the sky. And to do it for a failed lord who was slain by his wife, as his hands extends across, something is strange. Some kind of atonement? I don't know.
Savarkeen's fingers go up and like trace the face of this elf. This one finger like slides along the top of his ear. Just looking at the detail of it. Why are you here? I'm still detecting magic, by the way, so that lasts for 10 minutes. So if there is anything, she tries to focus on this statue, if there's anything arcane about it.
The light behind it is obviously magical, but the statue itself is not. There's a little bit of just sort of lingering magic all around this place.
As the Silavar has took a few hurried steps back off the staircase as it begins to ascend, and as it kind of rumbles to a stop, he kind of watches it close and then turns and says, Brother Jidden, have you found a way out of here yet?
No. I don't know if there is one.
There must.
Jake, you said like the light from these two figures in the center of this chamber, hall, it kind of makes it look like they embrace.
Correct.
Zavir kind of steps behind the statue. What's producing the light?
It looks like a stone that has been kind of embedded into a carving in the wall.
Zavir shrugs off his cloak, swings it in his hand, and he drapes it over this stone.
Okay. As you drape it over the stone, obviously the room gets a lot darker, and you hear a distant, almost moaning, a cry of someone in great sorrow.
Is that just for him, or do we all hear it?
You all hear that.
Okay.
Zavir holds the cloak over it and just focuses outward.
Savarkeen's going to turn around, and she makes this whistling noise to get the attention of the other drow on the other side.
One of them yells back, "It's a statue of a human, a woman. There's a carving underneath. I don't know what it says."
Make the light dark.
They cover it.
Jake, do I know, based off the story I was aware of if his wife was human or elf?
28.
Yes, you actually, the reason that you were sort of taught the story is because he was killed by a human woman who he had taken as a wife.
Okay.
And it's sort of a cautionary tale about,
Don't.
yeah, mixing the races.
Wow. Wow.
It's a good lesson.
Actually, that half elf upstairs is the descendant.
Spoiler!
Yeah.
Suddenly becomes very dark. You hear that wailing again. It sounds closer. You faintly feel the floor shake just a little.
Jake, I scanned the room now that it's gone dark and my dark side has kind of kicked back in. Has anything changed about the room itself physically?
No. I did mention there was doors.
Yes,
on,
you did.
On the ends.
Yep.
Yep.
You said it was a spoiler, so I didn't know.
No, I just meant because Matt hadn't moved yet.
Oh, there's doors on both ends of the cavern?
There are doors.
Oh,
on the
okay.
ends, yeah.
They're like closed stone
Yep,
doors?
Yep.
I was just fixated by the naked statue.
Is it the statue? Is there anything that would indicate this could be a tomb? Like, is there?
It feels very tomb-like, but
Because
you
of how
don't see
still it is?
anywhere, and it just feels like a.
But there's no like raised plinth that could be
feels
like a
almost more like a memorial
okay.
or something like that than a tomb.
Mausoleum.
Mausoleum. Yeah. There's no place where a body would be.
Okay.
Not even missing. Not even a missing. Like nothing.
Other
looks
than
out of
behind the door.
maybe behind the doors. Yeah. But as
Salavar
it
and-
becomes completely dark, you all notice that there is the faintest glow of light coming from under the door nearest to where all of you are.
Savarkeen flashes hand code back. She blinks her eyes, and we're in that infravision.
Come on now.
Savarkeen blinks her eyes, and now that infravision is back on, she flashes hand code down the hall to gather.
You flash the hand code down to the two drow at the far end, and past them, little sliver of light coming from under that doorway. And then that sliver of light goes away. And then your sight of these two drow glowing from their heat signatures goes away as some unnatural darkness covers them. And you hear them scream. And that is where we
God damn it. God damn it. It's undead. We're doing undead stuff.
Cool.
As soon as you were like, and his story was tragic, I'm like,
Thank you for listening to A Tangled Web. Please, if you have time, tell a friend, write us a review, or, just go out and shout it on the rooftops. Check out all of our different social media platforms. You can go to our website and find links at the bottom. There's probably also links on whatever you're listening to right now. That's nastygramrpg.com, and definitely check out the socials because I tend to put little things on there to help with NPCs and visual aids and whatnot. Our intro music was by A Wilhelm Scream. Theme song is Oath by Adrian von Ziegler. All scores by Adrian von Ziegler and Antti Marttikainen. Thanks for listening.
That's nasty.
We have nothing to fear. Clearly, these are all combatants that attacked us, and the International Criminal Court will have nothing to say. This is a justifiable.
that's the UN on the North Road.
Hey, you didn't kill the women and children.